Please join me in our responsive call to worship. God invites us to embrace the uncomfortable, showing compassion to all of God's children. God walks alongside us, making Christ known to us in unexpected places. God sends those we need to guide us along the paths of forgiveness and healing. Let us worship God.
Gather in this holy place that we might know and understand God better. Good morning, friends. Welcome to worship at Bradley Hills Presbyterian Church. Those who are here in this sanctuary, those who are connected across the country through our live stream, we know that God's love knows no bounds and that we are connected on this Lord's Day. For those who are online, welcome. We hope you will open up today's bulletin on the front of the website and make a pledge or an offering if you like through the Give Now icon, or explore the ministries of the church through our website. And for those who are newer to our community and would like to get more connected or learn more about Bradley Hills or how we might walk alongside you and your family in this journey of life and faith, welcome. We have a blue guest packet in our narthex. We have red fellowship pads, and on the 7th of July, I'll be gathering over lunch, and childcare included, with anyone who'd like to learn more about our ministries or even explore membership as we receive members on July 14th. Or send me a note at david@bradleyhillschurch.org. Would love to have a chance to connect during the week. If you do explore your bulletin, you'll see announcements in the life of our community. We give thanks for the gift of music today as Judy Webster and as Giles Cook lead us in music today. Thank you, friends, for your gifts of music with us. And here, as we explore our bulletin, you'll see, particularly for families with kids, our Vacation Bible School coming up in August, our confirmation class for those interested in having a youth confirmed next year. We'll have a meeting after worship next week. Next Sunday following worship, we'll have our Bible study this Wednesday, and you can see other announcements in the life of our community, Becky House and other missional projects. But speaking of mission, today, as you see from our attire here, is what we call our annual Youth Mission Report Back. Each summer, our youth take 3 trips. There will be a youth trip for middle schoolers to what's called Massanetta, and for senior highs to a place in North Carolina called Montreat that we do each July. And typically in June, there is a mission trip, a service trip where our youth go with some adult advisors as well and partners. This year we went to Richmond, Virginia, and you'll hear throughout this service as our youth help develop this service and will lead both much of the liturgy, but also will be reflecting on their experiences in service. And so if you would like to get involved as we start to vision where God may be leading us in service as a community in this next year to come, and particularly in next summer's trips, if you're an adult who's ever wanted to experience the joy that many of us had of being part of a youth mission trip, as you think about next summer, we would love to have a conversation with you. Friends, let us now open our hearts fully to worshiping our God.
Please join me in the prayer of adoration and confession. Father, Mother, Spirit, in all your vast wisdom, you have intricately planned paths for every one of us. In our day-to-day lives, the busy noise quiets your call. But in times of service, we can see and feel the way to you. We stumble in the darkness of chasing worldly pleasures and treasures. While we know your plan may have highs, lows, and times of mundane mediocrity, your call brings us to serve in ways of eternal significance. Forgive our necessity for noise and our nature to stray, and help us find your lighted pathway. We pray. Amen.
Friends, believe the good news.
In Jesus Christ, we are forgiven.
Good morning, friends. Hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you with us this morning. And I don't know if any of you all, some of you might have been here. Was it just last Sunday? It feels like a lifetime ago. But we recognized seniors in worship and we gave them some gifts, right? They looked kind of like this. We gave gifts out to our seniors. And so I just came back from going on a trip with everybody. Can you turn around and look at all those folks behind you? Yeah, I went on a trip with all those guys, right? Yeah. And so we went down to Richmond. And the thing that we were talking about was gifts. Who loves a gift? I love a gift, right? Right? Do you like giving gifts too? Isn't it fun watching someone open up a gift? Oh, it's so exciting. I love it. I also like receiving gifts. Thank you for your honesty, Thea. So in this bag are some gifts, all right? So you're going to reach in, and I want you to pull out one. And if you can read it. If not, I'll help you read it, okay? So will you reach in here and pull out something? Okay, what does that say?
Persuasion.
Okay.
Leadership. Mercy. Can you say it really loud? Mercy.
Mercy, that's right.
Service.
Yes, ma'am. Some good readers up here. Y'all.
Discipleship. Prophecy. Ministering. Encouragement.
Sure, I'll pull one out. Teaching.
And my last one is giving. I couldn't have planned that better. Look at that. All right. So, but are these regular gifts? No, these are not regular gifts. This isn't a toy. This isn't a book or something. These are spiritual gifts. What? Spiritual gifts. I know. But if I said a talent, you could tell me talents, right? You know what a talent is? Maybe? Tell me a talent. What's one of your talents, Jonathan? Okay. I'm going to go with kindness. All right. Who can tell me a talent? Who knows who has a talent they want to share with me? Or how about this? Is anybody good at singing? Yeah. Or how about maybe you're good at soccer? Yeah. Are you a fast runner? Yeah. So those are all talents, right? You know what a talent is. Well, a spiritual gift is like a talent, and it comes from God. And later on in the service, we're going to, the scripture that we focused on was Romans 12, verses 1 through 8. And it talks about all these spiritual gifts that God gives us. And I can tell you right now that the gifts that you're holding in your hands, the one you have may not be the one that God has given you. But I can tell you that every person up here behind you has some of these gifts, and they shared them with me and with others this week. And I bet that you also have some of these gifts and that you share them. And this week, we were just learning about our gifts, others' gifts, and what it means to use our spiritual gifts. So my gift to you this morning, in addition to these wonderful papers with spiritual gifts on them, is my friend Emily. And Emily's going to tell you a little bit about Emily's experience on the trip this week.
Hello, friends. I'm Emily Coffey. I am a rising sophomore in high school, and I went on the mission trip. Do any of y'all know what a mission trip is? No. So basically, it's where you go away with your youth group, which y'all will be soon a part of when you all grow up. And when you go on a mission trip, you grow in your spiritual connection to your youth partners and also to the people that you are working with. While I was there, on, I believe it was our second day, we went to an animal shelter, and one of my gifts was being an animal lover. And me personally, I have a little puppy at home. His name's Sirius. He's so cute. Do any of y'all have pets? What's the name of y'all's pet?
Holly.
Is Holly a dog or a cat? Dog. What's your pet's name?
Samuel.
What kind of pet? The dog? Oh, cute. Let's do one more.
Suki.
What's Suki?
Dog.
Dog. A lot of dogs out here. That's okay. It's okay if you don't have a pet. But we went to an animal shelter, and an animal shelter is where there are plenty of animals that need homes or are there for health reasons or were dropped off for some reason. Most of the animals there were dropped off because people didn't want to raise them, or they actually were given birth to there. And one of the things that I really wanted to do that I thought we were going to do when we came was work with the animals. We did not get to do that. It was really sad. But I did have to use a gift of patience, and I had to clean out crates and cat litter boxes. And honestly, it was a little bit gross, but but in the end, I got to meet this amazing dog. His name's Gizmo, and he's a hound. He's a hound mix. He was wonderful, and I spent the rest of my time there with him. Have y'all ever spent time with another animal and y'all find something crazy about them? Like something you didn't expect to find? Well, in my time spending with Gizmo, I found a tick. It was not fun. 'Cause do you all know what a tick is? Yeah, ticks aren't fun. Have any of you had a tick? Oh! You don't have one anymore, right? Good. Ticks are bad. Well, I found one on him, and it was not fun. Because me personally, I don't really like bugs. It was a little gross. But while I was petting him, I was just like, oh, Gizmo, you're so calm, you're so patient. He was also really shy. And I'm like, oh, there's something hard in his fur. And then find out a little later, it was a tick. I was all like, I'm good. Thanks. Have y'all ever been in an uncomfortable situation? No? Oh, you have an uncomfortable situation? They're not really comfortable, are they? But my time at the SBCA was a lot of fun. And I couldn't have imagined a better experience, regardless of the tick. And later, if you have any more questions about my experience, we will be going upstairs with my sister. And from there, you may ask me questions while we do our lesson in church school. Pray with me. Dear God, thank you for the gift of creation. For our pets, wildlife, and the gift of each other. May we go forth into this day, thanking God for our gifts, that may find something unexpected, but may save another. You may go in peace.
I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, on the basis of God's mercy, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable act of worship. Do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned. For as in one body we have many members, and not all the members have the same function, so we, who are many, are one body of Christ, and individually we are members one of another. We have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us: prophecy in proportion to faith, ministry in ministering, the teacher in teaching, the encourager in encouragement, the giver in sincerity, the leader in diligence, the compassionate in cheerfulness. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Hi, I'm Carol Frankel, and I had the privilege of going once again on a mission trip with our wonderful youth. I love each group. I love this group, and we had a very meaningful experience. This past week, some of our senior high youth went on a mission trip to Richmond, Virginia. It was through the PACE Center Youth Servant Leadership Institute. The PACE Center is Virginia Commonwealth University's campus ministry center. Each day, we participated in different mission projects or activities which our youth will highlight. I'm always proud of how our youth interact and embrace whatever we do. I want to speak briefly about stories. From the time we are children, we love them. We love reading them, hearing them, telling them. Stories tell us about events, but most importantly, personal stories tell us about people. When we listen to people's individual stories, we are hearing chapters that are part of their life story. It helps us to understand them better. I will share a brief story about myself. Some people may know that I practice martial arts. I have practiced karate for over 20 years, as well as another martial art for the last few years. I started karate at the ripe age of 50. Karate is not about entering into a fight, doing flying jump kicks, or kicking head high. Karate can teach some practical self-defense techniques, but overall, it is about developing yourself as an individual. Our studio's motto involves 3 characteristics: patience, training, character. I attained the rank of 4th Dan or degree black belt this year. It wasn't because I am an amazing martial artist. It was because I persevered and continued to train hard, to challenge myself, to learn and relearn many times, and to keep going. The other martial art I practice is called Daito Ryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. It is very difficult and very satisfying when you get the techniques to work. Now I have a confession. I wanted to impress the youth by showing them a technique from this art form. That was my first mistake. I tried it on 2 different individuals, and it didn't work on either one of them. I was embarrassed. That was my second mistake. I reminded myself of some major truths about Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. It doesn't always work, and it's different with each person. Our bodies are different and move differently. Working with different people is how we learn. Why didn't it work? What might I do to make this work for this individual? So you spend a lot of time training, trying things, and it's like, no, that didn't work. No, that didn't work. Okay, maybe that worked. The same thing is true when we deal with people in our daily lives. Why did that person say that? Why did they act that way? Each person is different and has a story. We can observe and learn from their stories. We can reflect on how our words and actions affect that other person. By listening to personal stories, we are telling the person that they are heard and that they matter. That is one of our highest callings as Christians. We often talk about observing God moments. I saw many God moments while on the mission trip. The youth worked and played together. I saw them encourage and support one another when we were at the climbing gym. I climbed too. I watched them prepare meals together. I watched them laugh together. I saw them stop and listen to some of the population that we were serving. Now it's your turn to listen to the youth as they tell their stories.
Hello, my name is Julia Anderson, and this was my third time going on a mission trip with the church. To me, the most important part of these mission trips are the smaller observations that I made. Not necessarily during a service, but by simply looking around your community and taking notice of what's happening around you, it can move you to new perspectives. This occurred most prominently for me on Tuesday. While most of the group went to the SPCA, Daniela and I went to a shower ministry for the homeless instead. Many of the same people who had come for food the day before were there. And for most of this service, we were unsure of what to do, so we simply did our best to help out whenever possible. As we were sitting and looking around, we noticed a sketch in the security guard, Debbie's, folder. We were in awe of the incredible imagination, talent, and effort put into creating the drawing. Debbie told us that it had been given to her by one of the people in need that came in, and I was moved by the thought that this talent would be unseen, because this same person is just trying their best to survive. So many of us are able to live out our dreams and make money for the talent we have, and we take that for granted because people who are equally or more talented have obstacles in their way that prevent them from reaching the same goals we have already met. The drawing allowed me to see that God was working through everyone around us. Even when someone is struggling to survive, there was beauty in their talent and beauty in how they express themselves. After the shower ministry, we walked around Richmond, exploring the area. As we walked, huge murals made by commissioned artists showed up every few blocks, making rundown buildings look vibrant and colorful with life. One thing that stuck out to me was the people we walked by. We were near the Capitol building and in the city, so about half of the people we passed were men wearing clean suits with slick-backed hair and carrying cases. The other half were people asking for money on the street. This was by far the largest wealth gap that I had ever noticed around me. In fact, it was one of the only times I had ever really recognized that there was an economic gap around me. This small observation allowed me to realize the disparities in my surroundings and enabled me to become more conscious of the needs of people living in my community. In summary, I call everyone to take time to notice the little things, which might not be so little. When you're out, look at the different people you see and the way they interact. Take notice of small beauties, like drawings, or ones which stand out, like murals. Recognize the injustices surrounding you. It only takes a little observing to see them. God can be found in so many different places and ways. It only takes a little to notice. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Andrew Gray, and as I reflect on the mission trip of this past week, what stands out to me most was the mood of many of the people we served. On the first day of the trip, just as soon as we arrived in Richmond, we went to Second Presbyterian Church. Second Pres is a church in downtown Richmond that offers free meals every week to anyone who wants or needs them. It doesn't matter who may need a meal a certain week, anyone is invited. At that church, Some of us made snack bags, and some of us actually served the meals. Alongside a few of the youth, I was able to help man the front door and check people in. We took people's names and kept count of how many people arrived to accept a meal. I don't know what I expected, but what caught me by surprise was how happy many of the people were. We made sure to be welcoming and smiling at the front door, but many people coming through seemed to be overjoyed to be there. One gentleman in particular remarked about how exciting it was to see youth checking people in. I see God in people spreading warmth to others, and I saw God in the smiles of people in Richmond, greeting us with good morning or how are you. I think many of us occasionally acknowledge that we take certain things for granted, but it is important to keep reminding ourselves that we take these things for granted. It is not often that we are overjoyed for a hot dog, but for people who are struggling to provide food for themselves or their family, that may brighten their week. That morning at Second Pres really put things into perspective for me, and deep learning experiences are what make mission trips every summer so meaningful. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brendan Gray, and this is my first youth mission trip. We have just finished a busy week, and I find myself back here at Bradley Hills, reflecting on our time in Richmond. One moment that stood out to me in particular was on the last day of our trip. We spent our morning cleaning and picking up trash on a pipeline around the James River. We shared conversations and laughs as we made our way to the end of the pipeline. At the end, we were met with an opening to a beautiful view of the James River. There were rocks in the water perfect for sitting on, and one by one, as the group got to the end, we all went and sat down on the rocks. Without saying anything, it seemed like everyone began reflecting on the busy week. Looking out onto the river after a morning of work was one moment I saw God this week. The days prior had been filled with rushing from service project to service project, and having that moment of peace and quiet helped me to connect with God in a different way than I had during previous experiences during our time in Richmond. And I think that those different experiences are what make our mission trips so special. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Simone Kang, and this is my second mission trip. I'm thankful to have been able to further connect both with God and the people by serving the community. Something that was different this year was we didn't have our phones during the day, we did more outdoor activities, and our flexibility to shower was limited. This took some getting used to. We were taken out of our normal routine and put into a new one. We were all put into this situation together, but we made the most of it. It was important for us to step into our discomfort to fully embrace the experience. The withdrawal of our phones simply led to more group interaction. Cards were the most popular item this trip. We played numerous games of blackjack, war, and Uno, and we were able to jump right in as many of us knew each other already and were able to work together as a team throughout the days and enjoy each other's company. A majority of the week we spent outside, whether it was hiking, gardening, or weeding. On Wednesday, we spent our morning maintaining the greenery around an elementary school, and we didn't have to do this alone. A group of 3rd through 5th graders from a church camp came to help us out. We guided the kids through what we were doing and got to know them as well. One of the tasks I was assigned was to help trim and shape the bushes. This is where I met Rosie, an incoming 4th grader who I quickly learned a lot about. We started off with a common question like, what grade are you going into, and what do you do outside of school? She was excited to let me know that she was in the gifted program at her school and her love for reading and chickens, especially silky chickens, which laid blue eggs. Even from that short amount of time, I was able to learn about her, and I could see the passion that she had. Rosie shared her gift of animals with me, and I enjoyed getting to know her as part of the community. A constant theme throughout the trip was gifts, and I was able to receive such positive experiences and interactions from everyone I encountered. On one of the first nights, we were led through an activity called Snaps and Claps. This is where we gave one person in our group a shout out for something that they did that day. On that night, my snaps and claps were for CJ, who was willing to hold all of our water bottles in his backpack throughout the day. Although we only did this activity once, the rest of the trip I was thinking, wow, that deserves snaps and claps. I was able to notice and acknowledge all the different talents and gifts that our group had. At one moment, it was Ben's piano skills. The next, it was Will making grilled cheese for the group. Or it was Emily's observance, where she was able to remember the exact way the room was organized initially, so we could put it back to the way it was when we left. Each and everyone on this trip was able to contribute their own gift, which made this trip the best it could have been. I saw God through every interaction and exchange of gifts. And overall, the bond that this group has and how everyone was hard at work trying to serve the community while also having fun was special to see. I'm grateful for this opportunity and the connections and gifts shown.
Hello, my name is CJ Coffinger, and this is my second youth mission trip. We started this trip much quicker than in the past, waking up at 6 a.m. for the drive and starting our first active service only a couple hours later, which was a challenge, but also a preview for the entire trip. Every day, we worked outside in the extreme heat, waiting hours to shower, and we weren't even allowed to use our phones. But we were also able to help lots of people, and I even had fun with my friends while doing so. We worked hard, helping serve lunches, weeding and gardening, and helping out at an animal shelter. The way this trip separated itself from others, though, was that I discovered a lot about the other people on it with me. Wyatt showed us his gift of rock climbing. Ben played us beautiful music on the piano every day. My brother took a bunch of amazing photos with our Polaroid camera, and I could go on and on. We played games together, cooked, cleaned, and just talked with each other every day, while also doing a lot of great service for the Richmond community. In this past week, I've grown closer to this group of people than I thought I could in a year, and learned more about them than I thought I could in 2. I'm so thankful that I decided to go on this trip because it truly helped me grow closer to my church and ultimately led me to have a deeper understanding of my own faith. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Will Coffinger, and this was my 4th mission trip with Bradley Hills. But before I get into my reflection, I wanted to share with you a story that was shared with us on this trip. I tried to shorten it up a little bit, though, so I'm not up here for too long. There's an old story about a young farmer down in the boot heel of Missouri who's plowing his field one spring. He's feeling discouraged because his attempts at growing different crops, cotton, soybeans, rice, have all failed. Wondering what he ought to do with the rest of his life, he utters a prayer to God. Lord, if you have a plan for my life, please send me a sign and I will obey. Just then, the farmer looks up and sees the clouds in the sky rearranging themselves to form the letters P.C. Preach Christ, exclaims the farmer. Of course. He tells the elders at his church about his calling, and reluctantly, they let him preach a sermon. But he's terrible at it. His sermon is poorly written, his points don't connect, and his delivery is long and boring. Afterwards, the elders asked him why he thought he needed to preach. When he described seeing the P.C. in the clouds and that he was called to preach Christ, the elders gently suggest that maybe he misread the sign, saying, "Son, I think the Lord was saying, plant corn." After my recent service trip in Richmond, Virginia, I found myself thinking about this story several times and how the lesson of it was clear all throughout our trip. One morning, we went to Richmond Community High School to garden, weed, and just clean up around the school. However, this was a little bit of a different experience from most of the service that I've done before, because while we still did a lot of work, we were paired with a group of around 20-ish children, all aged from like 9 to 12, and we were helping them clean up, but we were in more like a leadership role. And rather than exclusively doing the work ourselves, it was more of us helping to guide the little kids as they tried to give back to their community. And it was incredible to see the gifts being passed to the next generation. These kids were enthusiastic, hardworking, and eager to learn. I had some good conversations with the kids I met there, and they all had a gift that made them special. Funny enough, I worked with a fourth grader who shared my sister's name, Rosie, and who told me at the end that she loved me as she gave me a huge hug. I realized how our actions and attitudes can influence and inspire others, especially the younger generation, allowing their gifts to flourish. But what about our own gifts? One day during our devotions at the Pace Center, the VCU students that we were staying with asked us to participate in an exercise that they sometimes do, identifying a gift that you have. This exercise made many of us pause and think. It's a lot easier to identify a talent or a unique quality in someone else, but when it comes to ourselves, we hesitate. Just like it was for the farmer, why is it so hard to see the gifts that we possess and what our calling is? Perhaps it's because we are our own worst critics. We see our flaws and mistakes more clearly than our strengths and successes. But this exercise reminded me that acknowledging our gifts is crucial for personal growth and making meaningful contributions to our communities. This was a theme throughout the week, and I started to think about the things I'm good at and how these abilities have helped me succeed in various aspects of my life. I realized that my patience and perseverance are gifts when these qualities enabled me to persist through challenging tasks like removing that stubborn tree stump at that high school with Julia and Ben that we spent around 30 minutes trying to get out of the ground. Seeing the enthusiasm and effort from the kids we worked with also highlighted the importance of recognizing and nurturing our gifts. They looked up to us as leaders, and our ability to guide and support them made a tangible difference. It was a powerful reminder that our gifts are not just for ourselves, but for the benefit of those around us. Each one of us has something special to offer, and when we embrace and cultivate those gifts, we can inspire and uplift others. So as I share this story with you, I want to challenge each of you, when you leave here today, to take a moment and reflect on a gift that you see in yourself. Think about how that gift has helped you succeed and be the person you're called to be. Just like the farmer needs to understand his true calling, we need to recognize and embrace our own gifts and not be distracted by things that we think are signals. Everyone can use their talents in different ways, and you don't need to be preaching to serve God and help people. Although you're doing great, Pastor Gray. By understanding and nurturing our unique strengths, we can contribute more effectively to our communities and grow as people. Each of us has something valuable to offer, and it's through embracing these gifts that we can make a meaningful impact. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniela, and this was my first time going on a mission trip. When my mom first talked to me about going on a mission trip, I had kind of mixed feelings about it because I knew it would be a chance to me to live a new experience, but I also knew that I wasn't really close to the members of the youth group. But I was pleasantly surprised about how everyone in the youth group played their own part to make me feel included and welcome in everything that we did. During this mission trip, we had the chance to discover a lot of beautiful places and to connect with a lot of wonderful people. The experience that stood out to me the most was when we went to Mama J's, which is a Black-owned restaurant, for Juneteenth. It was one of my favorite moments because it was one of those times where I felt the most connected with the members of the youth group, as we were all hungry and just excited to try a new type of food. Since we didn't have our phones, CJ came up with a game called the Sugar Game, just to keep us distracted while we were waiting for the food. This trip also gave me the chance to experience a lot of gifts from multiple people. One of the gifts I experienced was when our server at Mama J's, called Crystal, brought 2 gold cups of lemonade for every kid on the table, and I thought that was just really kind of her because we hadn't even asked for it. I also had the chance to learn about my own gifts, my own talents that I brought to the youth group. I learned that I'm a very thoughtful person, as I'm the one who taught some of my peers that you had to wait for everyone on the table to get their food before you can start eating. Throughout this whole trip, I just felt God's presence in various different ways, but I've mostly felt it when we will gather up either in the morning or the afternoon to do reflection, just talk about our day and just pray together. Overall, I think that this trip was an amazing experience which allowed us to see God through our different activities and just get closer to each other. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ben Scribner, and this is my 3rd youth mission trip. When we arrived in Richmond, we first engaged in service at 2nd Presbyterian Church, which was serving lunches. When being introduced to the staff, I was impressed by a retired police officer named Debbie, who helped with the security and also sang in the choir. After serving lunch for a while, the choir began to sing, and I experienced God and the joy in their voices. It was meaningful to me that these individuals who were possibly struggling and enduring hardship still expressed happiness and rejoiced over music and a meal. Later in the week, I experienced God again when a staff member named Brian shared with us recipes for Guatemalan food and helped us to prepare dinner. I felt a strong sense of community as we all worked together to cook a delicious meal. Another time I experienced God came in an unexpected place. When we were taking a public bus to an animal shelter, 2 people in wheelchairs boarded the bus at separate times, and each time were carefully attended to by the bus driver. As I watched him ensure the safety and comfort of these people, I was given a sense of the strength of the local community. The small moment of compassion represented the grace of God present in the community as a whole. After a final act of service for the mission trip, picking up trash near the James River, we explored some of the shoreline and discovered a great vantage point to view the rapids. Watching the water flow, I experienced God again in the beauty of nature surrounding me. God is present in everything everywhere, and God nourishes, teaches, protects, and purifies through us. My faith was strengthened during this mission trip, and I am glad that I was able to do my part to spread the love of God. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wyatt Wissenhunt. On Tuesday, our group went on a hike alongside the James River. The hike was filled with nice views and shaded stretches under the trees. Our tour guide, Rachel, talked us through some of the history of Richmond and how the rocks of the James River were caused the pilgrims to stop and settle at Richmond. Although the history is insightful, I think the most important topic mentioned was the definition of a vocation. Rachel suggested that a vocation is different from a career and that it is something one feels they are suitable to do and that they spend a lot of time and energy into. I think it is a good reminder for us to think about where our God-given gifts lie and find where we can use these gifts.
Some of my favorite quotes from the youth this week included, it's actually okay not to have one's cell phone for a while. The grape juice of communion just tastes better than regular store-bought grape juice because it's been blessed. And I find God in this place. It's an extraordinary group of youth and children throughout the ministries of our church. The future is very bright at Bradley Hills. Thank you for your support of these youth trips. This group is social and spiritual and deeply missional. One day, as we were planting tomatoes and peppers, learning about deep ecology and supporting a community garden, our youth were sharing their gifts. But in this place, as well as each of the activities that we experienced, our youth learned to appreciate the gifts of each other and the gifts that they received from those they were serving alongside.
Good morning. I want to begin by thanking you, the congregation of Bradley Hills, for sharing your young people with me, for participating in their faith formation as their parents, as their church school teachers, as their mentors, as their deacons, as their congregation lifting them up as they've grown. You have given me a gift in these young people, and I'm going to really try hard not to cry. Okay, so this was my first trip with Bradley Hills, and my first youth trip since I was a youth myself. And I loved youth trips as a teenager myself. I went on countless trips, but it had been more than 20 years since I had embarked on a youth trip. And I have to be honest with you, I've taught preschool for the last 4 years, and the idea of working with teenagers is a little terrifying. I thought I knew where my gifts laid. But I learned so much on this trip. But let me start by sharing with you the gifts that were shared with me through the people on this trip, the young people and our chaperones. Emily Coffey has the gift of prophecy. Emily thinks about everything and wants to make sure that we are prepared for every possible outcome. And Emily also has a great gift of encouragement and the ability to fill silence. Julia Anderson has a gift of welcoming, a gift of quiet leadership and kindness, and the ability to make everyone around her comfortable and a part of things. Andrew Gray is a leader. Andrew Gray is mature, and Andrew Gray is thoughtful. Andrew will show and lead by example quietly what we all ought to be doing. Brendan Gray is an enthusiastic participator. I have never seen Brendan in a space where Brendan is not going to participate and bring joy to whatever task is at hand. Were you chopping onions? What were you chopping? Onions, Brendan? Yeah. I've never seen anyone make guacamole so enthusiastically. Simone is a teacher. Simone brought the makings for friendship bracelets and taught several of the youth group members very patiently how to make friendship bracelets, and brought this gift of craft and teaching and patience that we didn't even know we needed. CJ Coffinger might be the most polite young man I have ever met, but CJ is thoughtful and kind and considerate. And CJ always looks to those around him and sees what can be done. Will Coffinger, we may see in the White House one day. Will is an enthusiastic leader. He has the gift of both ministry and leadership, and Will led our group and made sure that we were always having a good time and that we were always fully participating in whatever activity was before us. Daniela has an incredible gift of wisdom and insight. Daniela brings to our group a global perspective that many of us don't have through her own personal life experiences, and has a quiet thoughtfulness and has insight far beyond her years, and shared that with us every day. Benjamin Scribner, the trip would have been far less musical without the gifts of Benjamin. Benjamin, whenever he finds an instrument that he can play, will play it. But that gift of having that music, especially when I've taken their phones away, and they don't have music in their ears at all times, I think Benjamin's piano and organ and musical skills were invaluable to creating an atmosphere of community and camaraderie. And I know, just because they shared, every single person appreciated every single time he sat down at the keys. Wyatt Wisenhunt might be the funniest kid I've ever met. And Wyatt kept us in stitches the entire time. Wyatt brings humor and levity to any and all situations, appropriate or not. And I will tell you, Wyatt has a gift with the older generation. And I will tell you that there was not a single person over the age of 40 that Wyatt encountered that didn't tell me later that Wyatt was their favorite. Carol was Wyatt's muse, and they instantly bonded. David Gray is one of the most thoughtful humans on the planet, and David's gift on this trip was always thinking about how every decision we made impacted the group and impacted every single person. He is thoughtful, and he is always looking towards others and how they can best be served. And Carol Frankel, I could not have done this trip without Carol. And Carol brings so much wisdom. This is not Carol's first youth trip. And I appreciated having a confidant, having someone to bounce things off of, having someone to share with, having a listening ear at all times to process the experience. I had the time of my life on this trip. The youth will tell you, some of the gifts that were my gifts that were pointed out was, one of them said, "Are you always like this all the time?" And the answer is, yeah, I am. I am an encourager. I am a motivator. I bring the energy. I can also yap a little bit. No. But I took my mothering skills and used them to mother the group, as my daddy would say, ride herd, keep them in line, make sure we were getting where we needed to go and doing what we needed to do and focused on what we needed to be focused on. You know, I have felt called into ministry as a vocation, and I've been leaning into that a lot, clearly, in this role. But youth ministry was a kind of a question mark for me. Like, is this the right fit? Do I have what it takes to lead a youth group? And God just placed a lot of people in my life this week who were affirming of that. The youth themselves, They put me through my paces and interviewed me in the van at one point. Thank you, Wyatt. But not only that, on our last day, I was saying goodbye to the pastoral staff at Second Presbyterian, and the associate minister said, you guys must be exhausted. Are you surviving? And I was like, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. I could do this for 5 more days. And she looked at me and she said, that's a calling. And that is a gift. And so for me, thanks to the gifts of these young people and watching them serve and watching them build community and watching them grow, I was affirmed in my own gifts and in my own talents. And that was such an incredible blessing. And I want to once again thank Bradley Hills for these young people, for bringing them up in the way of faith, for forming them, for shaping them, for getting them here, for driving them, for encouraging them, for sponsoring them, and for getting us on this trip where so many of us were affirmed in our place in this world. Will you pray with me? Creator, thank you so much for all of the many, many, many gifts that you have given us. Thank you for Bradley Hills Presbyterian Church. Thank you for the youth and the children in this church. Thank you for the next generation and for their insight and for their thoughtfulness and for their compassion and for their love of one another and for their love of your world and your creation. Thank you for giving them to us and for entrusting us with them. Help us to lift them up, help us to support them, help us to listen to them. Help us to hear what they have to say. Help us to create spaces for them to lead and to allow us to grow. Creator, thank you for all the blessings that we have. Thank you for our privileges. Thank you for placing us right where we are. And thank you for asking more of us and asking us to walk in service with one another for those who are less fortunate, for those who are struggling. Creator, we stand before you today and we just ask that you open our hearts to those in need, that you help us to use our gifts every day to better serve you and the world around us. Amen.
Please join me in our response in faith printed in our bulletins. We believe in the triune God, Father and Son and Holy Spirit, who gathers, protects, and cares for the church through word and spirit. This God has done since the beginning of the world and will do to the end. We believe in one